Hey up, I'm TheWonkyProphet, and I just finished painting this silver birch triptych. If you want to see how I did it, keep watching. Take it easy.
Right, silver birch triptych. Now I only had 3 canvases left after the last batch that I prepared up, and they were A2 size. Now a friend had picked them up for me and bought something slightly smaller than I would usually like to use. In fact, they're about half the sizes I would like to usually use. So I just stuck them all together, and I thought I'd go for a long thin one instead of a wide one. Try and do some sort of almost one-to-one representation of a silver birch tree. So I'm just preparing up the colour here. I wanted to start with kind of the grey tone for the white bark. So I mixed up a chromatic grey, slightly leaning to the magenta and the blue, and then mixed a load of white in. So I've got the 2 values there effectively, the darkest value for the tree and the lightest value for the tree. Now what I've started doing on my latest pieces is mixing up this kind of either a dark or a light mother, and then working from there either into darker shades or into lighter shades. So here I wanted to start with the white bark, and just really set that kind of stripe of the tree that reaches from sort of the ground all the way up to the very top of it. So I just go in really thick paint and a flat brush, and I just start applying it, as you can see, kind of thicker at the bottom and slightly thinner at the top, just getting a bit of shape, going in very rough, very angular, not worrying too much about precision with the paint, more thinking about texture and applying it quite thickly and getting a nice surface to paint on top of later on. So this is kind of, it's different to how I've plugged in a lot of other paintings in the past, starting with this very bright value. That was an interesting way of doing it. And I see it's quite a long piece, it's about 6 foot, so I have to keep reaching right up. And also I use silver birch in the winter to heat the house. I buy silver birch trees, so I had a good idea of the sense of scale, how thick the branches are, not branches, the trunk, how it splits down at the bottom. So here I'm going in, going in with the darker shade on the palette there, and then once I've established the light and the dark, I can start merging them together to create a kind of like textured mid-tone. But again, a very interesting way of doing it. Usually I would start with a mid-tone and then push it slightly into the values that I want, and then go back over the top on a second pass with brighter values and darker values. Whereas this, I was kind of setting almost a silhouette, black and white almost. It was very fun to do. Like I say, very different. I've just come off the back of a commission which I was trying to paint a building, Darley Abbey Mills, and it was different for me. It was quite difficult trying to get the shape and everything. I'm much more suited to this kind of randomised patterns of nature. So I wanted to come back and do something just very different, very free again, very loose brushwork and thick paint, and really play into the texture of the oils, and try and replicate the texture from the tree bark, of the tree bark onto the paint, which I feel I did it quite well. The leaves are another story. I'm not great with leaves, but I like what I did in the end. But it was all about the trunk for me. Really thick brush strokes, hold the brush parallel to the canvas, so the paint kind of lays over the top of the other wet paint. Now here I've mixed up, this is where things get interesting, so I mixed up a lot of colour. I've used between the yellow and the magenta to get these kind of orange, brownish earth tones. Now all of the whites and greys, the barks, I applied horizontally. And then all of this stuff, which all that was underneath the bark, which I painted first, this is the kind of the trunk of the tree showing through in various places, in the shading and where the bark's peeled off. And what I wanted to keep was that strong, almost white bark line down the entire thing. So I go in on the shadow bits and just start building all of this kind of, I say trunk tone. Sounds like an obscure music from the 80s, but a ska shoot off. It ain't two-tone, it's trunk tone. You play it through suitcases. That's trunk tone. You might remember such fantabulous acts as Harry and the Suitcases, and Larry and the Elephants. They were a good offshoot. They took trunk tone into new areas. They elephantised it. And through elephantisation comes monetization. Build up all of this colour, and I'm just smacking it in, and I'm so much fun. Also get me squats in for the day when I do the bottom bits. Squat down, spring up, squat down, spring up. Got good flexibility apparently. My hip was killing at the end of it. I broke my hip a few years ago, and it was got pins in it. By the end of the session of this, it was just like, Jesus Christ, and pins have been flexing and bending in it. But it didn't take too many sessions actually. It was maybe about 4 or 5 nights. I was working very, not quickly, but very focused. And while I was working freely, I knew exactly what I wanted to do at every stage of the way. What am I putting in here? I can't quite see it. I have to do this voiceover. I try to put the microphone about 4 or 5 foot away from the computer to film it, because the computer wears on like a road sweeper. It just goes because the fans get going. So I have to watch the video like tiny, and sometimes I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. I'm painting the tree. As you can see, I'm painting a tree. Oh, this is cool. I thought this was a cool little shot, right? I go so here I'm just using the grey, like a mid-tone grey, and I'm just putting tiny bits of texture in on top of the white. Whoop! Hey, look how cool was that shot? My old man gave me a tripod, and it's got this cool head where you can like hold a stick, wobble it about. Right. This is a whole thing that I've got going on. Winsor & Newton Cobalt Blue. Please send me some Cobalt Blue. It's really good paint. I'm running out of it. In fact, I'm running out of all my supplies, and I'm looking for some form of brand deal partnership or something like that. But look how chuffed I am with Cobalt Blue. Winsor & Newton Cobalt Blue. Way Cobalt Blue. It's all you need. It's the paint for me and you. Cobalt Blue. So I'm mixing kind of everything that I've got on the palette here, which I've been using all the colours and there's not much of it left, so I mix them all up and it makes kind of, almost neutralises the colour and turns it into a grey. Then I've added a load of white to bring it right up. I'm thinking about sky colours here, by the way. And then I bring everything back with the blue. Now what it gives at the end is this very complex, dulled out green blue. It's a very nice colour. I really enjoyed it, and because it comes from the mother of what I was painting on the tree and the trunk, cobalt blue, Winsor & Newton, the best blue for you. Because I was painting the trunk, I thought I would use the colours from the trunk to build the sky colour effectively. And because I only use primaries, 3 colours, you can mix them all together and then just pull in any direction you want really. It creates some very nice results. What I ended up with was 4 piles of different colour. I had the 2 that I mixed that you just saw, and then I added white into both piles to make some lighter versions. And I was wondering how to put the sky in and blah blah blah. Anyway, I've been down to a gallery opening, North Approach Gallery in Halifax, where I've got some work. And I've met a lady called, she goes by Artista Shri on Instagram. And she'd done all these panels of like trees and sculpted pomegranates on the trees and all this kind of like almost flat 2D work with all these birds on. Really colourful, really nice. Looking very, leaning into this almost like mandala-esque Indian style of colouring and patterning. Really nice stuff. And what she'd done was effectively the same piece 3 times over, but done a mono block colour on the background and changed that for each one to give them all a different feel. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with the sky, and I was like, so, and I was thinking about those pieces and I thought it was really cool, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to lean into the triptych here, and I'm going to paint each panel a kind of different flattened sky blue almost, like a mono. So I laid them on, and then very carefully I used horizontal strokes on that paint all the way up, because horizontal strokes and vertical strokes pick up light differently. So what you've now got is horizontal bark strokes and dark strokes, then you've got these vertical kind of colour strokes of the trunk, and then you've got horizontal strokes of the sky. Then we're going to go back into kind of vertical and more messed up strokes with the leaves, which means that when we see it in real life, it reflects light in different ways all over the piece. Some things look flatter and some things look more textured, some things look more colourful. There's a hair in the bush. So here I had the blue left over from the sky, and I just added a bit cadmium yellow into there to pull it into the green section of the colour wheel. And then I just start adding grasses, leaves. I did have a reference picture. I looked at a couple of reference pictures as well while I was doing this. I also took the dogs out for a couple of walks and had a look at some silver birches, but I'm not great at trees. I couldn't get them delicate enough. I just kept adding and creating these almost little like pom-pom like things that hang down, and I was pleased enough in the end. The colour, I feel like I got the colour quite correct. And if you get the colour correct and the perspective correct, and you miss a little on the form, it generally reads alright, or you can have 2 out of 3. Perspective, colour and form. And I find if you nail 2 of them, you're doing okay, and it'll read as what you want it to read, especially in the kind of expressionist or impressionist field, which is what I work in. So yeah, I'd blocked them all in with that kind of a couple of greens, and then they weren't reading right, and I didn't like them. So I removed a bit of paint, added a bit more paint, lightened up a bit of paint, and just started adjusting things a little bit. It's definitely something I need to work on. Leaf forms, and also how to get those shapes with the brushes that I use, the flats and the filberts. It can be quite difficult sometimes to get a perfect shape. And obviously, like I said earlier, I was leaning heavily into trying to get a good representation of the trunk and the bark, the texture on those, which I was, very, very pleased with. Whereas like, yeah, the leaves kind of fell short a little bit. So I'm just putting final touches in here. I'm having to stand on my easel because it was a bit too tall. But I think I'm just making some little final adjustments almost. Got my headphones on. Laura was in the room listening to whatever she was listening to, so I put headphones on. I think I was listening to Danny Brown's latest album, Stardust. If you're into that type of thing, you should listen to it. It's very good. It's almost like, I don't know how many tunes is on there, 10 or something, but they're all very, very different. It's like hardcore one, drum and bass, glitch, noise, hyper pop. Like he really throws himself into different genres, and it's a crazy album. Yeah, I'm putting some grasses and reeds along the bottom here, just using the same greens, bringing some greens into the bottom panel, so there's a representation of the green on each panel. It just adds a kind of a third colour really, because you got your blues, you got your reds, and now you've got your yellows coming in, so it's very balanced in terms of the colour theory of it. So my little doggy here. Come here, Wanda. Come here. Wait, come here. I can't do it if you're wagging in your tail. Come here, push your tail. Oh, you can't see. Can you see the end of her tail? Green. Oh, she's off. She likes to sit under here. That's not her, that's an old one. I think her tail has brushed this, and she's gone under it last night. But she's got a green tip on her tail. Oh, I'll have to get that off.